Welcome back to the Rebuild the Construction Mindset podcast. This year we're diving into education with our new series, Rebuild and Relearn, bringing you insights from the front lines of construction and beyond. From trade professionals to students and educators, we're uncovering what truly makes the industry tick.
If you're enjoying the podcast, watching it on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, and wherever you listen to your podcast. Your support really helps us keep building and sharing these important stories. Share it with your friends, colleagues, anyone else curious about the construction industry and how we can make it better. Together, we can grow this amazing community. Thanks for listening, and let's jump into today's episode.
Have you figured out today why you were attracted to the mud so long ago?
No, and it's weird because I interview people on the Drywall podcast, and there is this common denominator, and it's not like it can be mundane, but drywall. I mean, and we're talking specifically about finishing drywall, not necessarily hanging. I've had a couple of hangers on the show, but everybody is predominantly finisher.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something satisfying about the medium that when you become an expert at it, it's very, and then I was doing art with it too. So I was sort of immediately taking it to another level.
Well, is that maybe why then? If you are, you have like a creative artist mind, and so the mud allows that mindset?
I think drywall caters to an artistic mindset, a more artistic mindset. And then my stepdad was superintendent of Turner Construction, like back in the day. So I worked on commercial job sites through the apprenticeship. So I was also an apprentice. So then after the mobile home, I remember like leaving the mobile home manufacturing. I was like, this is horrible. Like it wasn't that I hated it. I just didn't like the way it was ran. And I felt like there was better opportunity in mobile home in the union. Because at that time, I think journeyman wage for a drywall journeyman finisher was maybe $25.80, something like that. Not to date myself too much, but this was 2000. 2001, so a little while ago. And I jumped on as a 50% apprentice. And I think when I left and came down to Arizona, I was at like 70. I actually asked for a raise because I felt like I was like really good. I got it. Like they gave it to me. I was working for PCI, but it was my stepdad was a superintendent with Turner Construction. He told me where to go. He was like, oh yeah, talk to this guy and then go down. And then I talked to that guy. I've called him on a phone, on a landline. Because cell phones
we had in 2000, man.
Because cell phones didn't exist. I called him my landline and he was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Go fill out these forms and go check in with this local. And it was local 360 out of Vancouver, Washington. And when this is the same day I quit the Fleetwood Homes of America, Longview, Washington. The same day I went home, called my stepdad. He's like, get in touch with Jack Huckins or whatever his name was. I can't remember it now, but nice enough guy. Told me what to do. As I was walking in the door, the same day, he was like, can you be at such and such location tomorrow? As long as you have your card. You're not officially in the apprenticeship program yet, but like we need laborers over here. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. Showed up with jeans, which you're not supposed to do. Like the union up there, you're supposed to wear whites.
Yeah.
So I showed up in jeans with like this ridiculous plastic pant, and the journeyman they immediately started making fun of me. And that was home.
You're like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, it was horrible. Like I don't know why I stuck it out, but I was first 6 months was just like moving scaffold and cleaning the automatic tools, and just if I was lucky, like I get a spot screws, and do all that. But it was just shit work, for a long time. But it was good. It was like good money and full benefits, and I mean, after 6 months, I think I had full benefits. I was making $1 an hour vacation pay. I had medical and dental and like all this crap. I didn't know how to like, I didn't know that was valuable. I was that young. I didn't care. And then I threw it all away. Like I went from making $18 an hour in that setting doing mostly commercial drywall work, to doing piece rate in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Like I just left it. I just quit and left, and like drove down to Bisbee, Arizona, of all places, and started doing piece rate in Sierra Vista, which is a close town to Bisbee, and I was making 8 cents a square foot, like, and at my best, I could make $12 an hour. Like, and I was fast. Like, I got really fast at finishing houses. Like, there'd be like these teams of Mexicans, and then there would be me, and they just thought I was nuts, and they were always making fun of me, but whatever. Yeah.
What's funny is Kelly's mom was telling us, we did a podcast with her mom, and she was a roofer, and she was telling us that she also did like piecework. And I just think it was the first time I ever heard that was even a thing. And how often, I guess, how common
is
common.
Today? Very
is
common.
It common today? But it's probably higher.
I think it depends on the market you're in. I mean,
there's different markets. So like up in Toronto in Canada now, like I'm familiar with rates all over. I just interviewed a girl from Newcastle, England, yesterday. She's 36. But it's fascinating, like how different trades are from place to place. Toronto in Canada, they do all smooth finish. Very good work out of Canada. Down here in the Southwest, the prices are very suppressed. And even into Texas, it's like real cheap down here. And so they kind of beat up the drywall sub. They try to. And then the builders, like they'll use like, the immigrant labor force, like is a very fine line there, because like, the builders will turn a blind eye, or maybe one of the guys like carries the license, but then he's got like all these dudes coming in and ripping through houses, and they don't really check, and so that's always forced and here's a misconception about drywall. So that's always forced the price down. But there's nothing easy about drywall finishing or drywall hanging. Like they're extremely skill-oriented trades. Like, and I'm no dummy. I'm an artist. I do art. I developed a product. I do a podcast. Like, I went to college, I read, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks. I wouldn't consider myself a dumb person. And the misconception about drywall is that, anyone can do that. It's very disrespectful to drywall people when a contractor specifically will be like, I can do that, I just don't have time, and then they do it and it looks like shit. And this is something that we're like, 89% of the visual space in your house is walls.
Yep.
And the painter comes in, the painter gets all this credit, and I'm like, dude, and no disrespect to the painters, but give me a fucking break. Like, you've got hanging drywall and finishing drywall versus going in and painting a house are two different animals. Like, as far as the skill sets are concerned. And I mean, I'll go toe to toe with a painter all day long. And here's the other fascinating part. Painters make more.
Like, really?
Spray out the house.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
The drywall guys get beat up. They'll make $500 profit margin, a large drywall company, on an entire house.
Wow.
So, like, think about that. Think about hanging, finishing. Like, just think about you grabbing a piece of sheetrock and hanging it on the wall. Okay, now think about doing a whole house. Like, the amount of energy expenditure that would take. $500.
I'm a mill worker, and I respect the hell out of drywallers, because if there is not a good product for me to hang my cabinets or my panels on, like, it's gonna make our life like a lot harder, right? To make sure that everything's shimmed properly. And I mean, there's so much that goes into it that just a good drywaller will make the project as a whole 10 times better. I mean, to your point, like, it looks like it's just a bunch of blank walls and it should be easy and all that stuff. But
yeah,
you can visibly see the difference between a good drywall.
At work right now I'm working on a case study between three different projects, but they're all very similar projects, and it's based on where it's more piecework, like just drywall one wall, come back, or leave a portion of it out because I got to get back in here later and do whatever. So you like leaving holes of drywall. And then we have another job that we've had consistency. We're going to go into one room completely, get it all done. We're going to drywall it all. Then we're going to mud it all, like that. And we're actually looking, and we took photos. Because that's a big thing. You can talk about schedule and financials.
Wait, what's the third? Do you have a third one that you're comparing?
It's kind of like they're all like worse, a little better.
I would assume it seems like a very interesting case study, but like I would assume that in the construction realm, the contractor that tries to pile the trades on top of each other and rush through each step is going to deal with more frustration, more going back, and ultimately more time than the contractor who allows the time for each trade to adequately do their job and doesn't stack those trades on top of each other. And that's like a scheduling issue. So you might think it's counterintuitive to have that painter wait until that drywall guy is done, or have the plumber wait, or have the electrician wait, or whatever. But I think in reality, if you're building a house that way, and I'm not sure, you could probably talk to different builders about this, but it seems like the builders that are most successful work really well with scheduling.
Good. You're tying it back to what I was talking about earlier with last planner system and all of that. Right on point there. But then we're also looking at the quality. And we have photos of a wall that looks like craft work, right? You can see the finishing and you can see all the lines because it's not like consistent, and the finishing doesn't look great on top of it because there's so much cutting around for the drywall. And then we like the same area in the other project looking at just that quality finish. And it's not even with direct sunlight. It's not epoxy paint. It's just normal paint, right? Because those are all questions. How's the light coming in? What's going on around there? And that's the other thing, is that quality. So going back to just in your house, you stare at these walls all day long. You want them to look presentable, right? There's actually a bump in my house right over here on this other side, and I can tell it's obviously the framing's a little off. And then there's this little boop where the drywall comes together, and there's nothing you can do as a finisher to fix that unless the drywall gets framing and drywall. I mean, it all stacks. It's compounded onto each other.
We could fix it, Kelly. We could fix it with a little Fresco Harmony. So yeah.
Well, like we're gonna feather it out for like 80 feet. You don't need 80 feet, but yeah.
No, feathering it out or building it out certainly could help. But then you're still matching texture. It's a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Fresco Harmony, I would just blow out the entire ceiling. Base coat, just like cover it. Gone.
But that whole work that you have to go and do.
Will you explain to our audience listening what Fresco Harmony is, and just kind of give a little bit of a backstory to that?
Yeah. So my background's drywall finishing. I ended up in Crested Butte, Colorado, after a year and a half in Arizona doing piece rate. There was a little better pay. Crested Butte, if you don't know, is a ski town in Colorado. The last great ski town, they say. I don't know. They're all pretty much Aspenized at this point. But we were doing like custom homes, and I had been doing art with the color in the joint compound. And so we did, it was kind of funny. There was a company out of Phoenix called Hopper Finishers that they hired to come up and do this, traditional Venetian plaster and the ski in, ski out $12 million custom home. We were doing the drywall on it, CB Drywall. I was working for CB Drywall at the time. And they were kind of like, my boss kept me off of the job because they were very secretive. you could go down and you could take a class, you could learn how to do plaster. So like on the opposite end of the spectrum, so you have the carp that are the drywallers of the construction industry, and then the opposite end of the spectrum, I mean, maybe only maybe only like the janitor or the maybe the masons, but no offense against masons there too, but like, there's the lower echelons of the construction industry. The other side of that is the prima donna plaster guys like that are making like $12 a square foot. They're talking to the designer. So anyways, these guys were very secretive. They didn't want, my boss kept me off of the job. He didn't want me there poking around, asking questions, which of course I would have because he knew me. And they were making $12 a square foot. Now, at that time in Crested Butte, Colorado, so you're talking about piece rate for hanging 5/8 sheetrock on high, hard vaulted ceilings was fetching around hang finish and texture around $1.35. That's all in. I believe that's material costs as well. So that's quite a departure. $1.35 versus $12. And when I found that out, there were two things that I found out that helped plant the seed for Fresco Harmony. One was I hated plaster. It just seemed ridiculously laborious, counterintuitive, not cost efficient, not efficient at all in any capacity. And it makes perfect sense why it consumes like 1.5% of the construction industry today, and nobody can afford it anyways, and so people don't really put it in their homes. I mean, you've got micro cement, you've got some other systems that are sort of catching people's eyes, but they're still really expensive. And at the end of the day, builders don't really want to spend extra money. They should. So there's a paradigm that you should just paint and texture walls or just do level 5, which is also ridiculous to me because that's 87% of your visual space in your home. They won't bat an eye at spending $10,000 on a front door for a custom home, but forget about spending an extra $5,000 on the walls. That set aside, that's a conversation for another time, but this is a paradigm this is my world. This is the paradigm that I'm trying to shift. Why aren't there 100 different ways to finish walls? Why is there just like paint and texture or paint and level 5 and maybe wallpaper? What else do you got? You got some, stacked stone, that's super expensive. There isn't really anything. So that's where I'm trying to create a system, and what Fresco Harmony is a color joint compound system. So I'm basically exploiting the merits of joint compound and creating a plaster looking surface that can be done fast and affordably. And not only have I created the color line, but now I'm working on the systems. So there's a spray application where you can spray out an entire house base coat in a half a day, and then go into your troweled second coat that's sanded, looks like a micro cement, beautiful. And then even further, we're spraying on the third coat, which is a sealer. So there's a couple of different finishes that you can do, but part of my challenge is like, let's make it fast and affordable for these. And then, I have to convince the drywall, the applicators, the builders. So very challenging. But it was all created in Crested Butte when I put 2 and 2 together and realized that like, oh, I'm in the wrong industry. I need to be in plaster. And not only do I need to be in plaster, but like the texture we were doing at the time in Crested Butte was this full wall cover with a pool trowel, with a 14-inch pool trowel. So we would finish the walls to like a level 3 light sand and then do this full wall texture. And I was like, well, you could color the mud and paint and texture at the same time. In theory, that was the original idea. And I pitched it. I think I pitched it to a couple builders. They thought I was nuts. But I ended up doing, because the samples too that I was making were very crude. Nobody had ever done it. I mean, nobody had ever successfully colored joint compound and created a system for doing walls. I didn't realize it was this revelation at the time. I thought I needed to keep it secret because if I told anybody, they'd steal my idea. So very quickly I had to learn how to formulate color based on a box of mud so that I could duplicate color from batch to batch. That was like very early on. I actually talked to a painter to figure out how to do that. And I remember I was back in Vancouver, Washington, helping my friend with a job, with a remodel job that he was doing, and my truck broke down. And the place where I was staying, the guy, I had like a little pop up, like I was a vagabond. I was like vagabonding around the country, like living in a pop up. Like,
That's cool.
it was great. And so I was outside of his house and my truck was broken down and I felt really bad. And he wanted help with this wood paneling. And I was like, let's do this idea. We'll go right over the wood paneling with this colored joint compound. And I took some black and I spun up a bucket of mud with black and it turned out gray. And then I took just regular white mud and I swirled them together and I went over that wood paneling and it lasts for a long time. The seams cracked. Like since then, I've done many wood paneling jobs where we've actually gone right over wood paneling and all kinds of various substrates because mud's an amazing medium. But like that particular job, or if I go over wood paneling, nowadays I'll do like corner bead. We'll do, make sure the seams are really tight.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're stupid for doing that because wood paneling should be removed." And that's not always the case. Sometimes it's very rigid. It's fastened to the studs real heartily. And if I remove that wood paneling, well, now I have to take off all of the trim. I have to take off all of this, all that, as opposed to just sort of going over the wall. And I've done it over tongue and groove, cinder block, brick. I mean, you name it. I've probably gone over it. Doors, like metal doors, wood doors. Mud has amazing adhesive qualities. Like,
Is it more for like interior applications, or is it can you use it for exterior applications as well?
Yeah, you can do portal ceilings or like outdoor porch areas. Anywhere that they're using existing drywall, those areas tend to crack anyways. Though even with drywall, like they'll fail. Yeah. Especially if moisture gets to them. But they'll hold up in an exterior setting as long as it's enclosed. Anywhere you put normal drywall, right? You can put, around shower enclosures, not where it gets wet, but around like the ceiling area and stuff. You can do, joint compound there. You do around fireplaces. It's tremendous against heat. Yeah.
I was thinking about that when you were saying that, like going over the brick. I was like, that would be really cool. Like that would make a fireplace look really, really cool. I feel like if you're trying to finish a place, that's just typical red brick.
I just did. So now it's like $1,600 minimum. I just did a fireplace, posted on did a video, 4.5 hours. $1,600 minimum, and then we did she had a beautiful ceiling. This is a Deb Short Vineyard Homes here in Albuquerque. So she's an award-winning builder. She likes the fresco. She doesn't do the whole house, and we do have people that are doing whole houses, but she'll do a fireplace. Mm-hmm. And it took me 4.5 hours. I busted this fireplace with one of our colors, JJ Ash, and I'm still making money doing the actual using Fresco Harmony to make money. Yeah. So not only do I sell the product, but I actually use it and make money doing it.
Yeah. That's cool. That's a really unique idea. I mean, this is the fact that you went from playing soccer to creating your own product line, and then also have a podcast. It's very an interesting turn of events. I feel like,
it's a lot of different skill sets, and I reflect on my dad. I always felt bad because my dad could do anything. He built horse arenas, and he built pull frame buildings, and he painted cars, and he put engines into cars. He was one of those guys. And I always felt bad because I could give two shits about doing mechanical work. It doesn't interest me in the slightest, and I don't like it. Painting cars would be kind of cool, but there's a lot to that as well. But but I always felt like, oh, I didn't do the things that my dad did. But it's like the skill sets that I have doing what I do nowadays, like I've had to figure out like a lot of crazy shit in the same way that he had to figure out stuff like social media. Like, I'm very savvy at social media. I had to become a marketing company to basically market my own product because I can't afford. I've bootstrapped this whole thing, so I haven't been able to afford, to pay. I mean, it's getting better now. We're like making profits now. We have 13 retailers that are carrying the product, and we just quasi partnered with a new product called Mud Skip that is an additive for all-purpose joint compound and regular joint compound that creates joint compound to have the properties of plaster. And so she's actually full circle. She's talking to mobile home manufacturing companies that want their.
That's where it started for you. Maybe that's where Fresco Harmony needs to start. Maybe that's what needs to happen, man.
Well, like immediately they wanted a color line. Like, so they're like, oh, okay, this is great. It turns mud into like, a plaster product. Where's your color line? And so she was on the podcast, Sheila Cross. She's kind of a go-getter. And the product's called Mud Skip. It's pretty cool. I've vetted it, even secretly, I've vetted it to like people that I know. I'm like, oh, check this stuff out. I've used it myself. I'm using it right now on a project that I'm starting tomorrow. I like to research new products for sure. But, she was smart to come to me to be like, okay, we kind of both, I could have had like maybe some ego around it. And, this is too, like, I don't want to give you my stuff, but I think sometimes like synergy is really good. And if we work together, we can cover more ground, especially against companies like USG, the larger companies that just, especially in the drywall space, like it's so hard to push a new product in this space that we all have to kind of work together.
Yeah. I gotta say, I love your viewpoint of the fact that like you're a very creative individual and that you've turned that and like use that as in the skilled trades. I think that is so cool and so interesting because a lot of the times I feel like people aren't really wanting to get into the trades because they're like, maybe they are really creative and they're wanting to do something more on the, using the right side of their brain. They think construction is just using your brain. And I love that you have that viewpoint because I feel like that's something that our listeners can take, especially, we're trying to, part of our goals, I guess, is to help get people into the trades, high school students and college students even, and people who are like just trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And the trades are more than just, a hard hat and a hammer. Like, and I think people just see that and that's what they picture. So I love that you have that viewpoint and that you are really creative and that you've turned it into not only a business, but also like a podcast and all these different avenues with it than just drywall and just mud, kind of thing. So that's really
there's
cool.
A lot of potential. I mean, there's also a paradigm about going to college. I think it's shifting a little bit now where people are sort of starting to realize, oh, okay, these kids are graduating college with $100,000 in debt and there's no guarantee of getting a job. Whereas if I go into a trade or I enter an apprenticeship, I'm getting paid to learn, and I'm not just getting paid. I'm getting paid a good amount. And yeah, it can be hard work, but my niece came to me. I was like, dude, you should go check out like welding or like apprentice, like a electrician. Like that would be fantastic. You make good money and you learn this trade. You can go anywhere with it. And she graduated from University of Washington. Now she's a mixologist, and she's doing really well with. And she's like a social degree type person, but like she's doing great. Like she's a survivor, she's a hustler, and she's kicking ass. And like but it ain't using her degree. A lot of money. And I'm not saying college is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying, man, when I left college finally, and that whole like stress of doing homework, I was sad about the soccer, but like when I got into the trade and started working, man, I loved it. It just catered to but I also vetted what I wanted to do. I really liked the mud, and there was something about it. So, I wouldn't want to do electrician work. That's not in my wheelhouse. Or plumbing, although plumbing and electrician makes a lot of work. I would do welding. Welding has always kind of seemed cool to me. I concrete always looked cool to me, but like that just seems like a back breaking, like stucco. Like fuck that. Roofing too, like roofing. No thanks. No thanks.
What do you think we need to do to make it more attractive for people to come in? I mean, for any of it, not just mud, but I mean the construction
industry. You make money. You make money, and you don't acquire debt. Like that's it. And you're not sitting at a desk. I mean, I could sell it all day, and I do. People that have kids are like, I don't know what to do. It's like, go work for a builder. I wish I would have worked for like a builder, honestly, and like learned everything I could learn about the home building process, and then go build my own damn house and then sell it and do it again. Like there's good money there. I mean, people are always going to be living in homes. But going back to your point, Jenna, yes, it's a unique skill set that people are kind of stuck in the trades. I run into it a lot. Fresco Harmony sort of offers, especially drywallers, sort of a way out. They can use colored mud and leverage the skills and tools they're already using to create beautiful walls in your home. Like that's cool. So I'm taking this thing that I created for myself kind of, and I can share it with the trade that I'm in. And I can talk to them on the level about drywall. Like that's kind of cool too. We could talk about substrates and what level to finish the drywall before the fresco and all of that stuff, and textured walls and things like that. But my friend Josh too, just to touch point, I did a podcast with him on a separate platform, but he did the same thing with tiling. So he started to cut and shape tiles like out of slabs of clay, almost like mosaic. But there was and you can look him up, Tierra Tile. He's out of Homer, Alaska. Phenomenal, extraordinary work. And he goes to like coatings, and he speaks now at he's like my best bud from high school. Like we got in trouble together. But like he was kind of a jack of all trades, but he kind of was specialty in tile, and he did the same thing. He used his creative knowledge. We were both friends, but he started to do creative mosaic tiling, but like with shape tiles. Like he would cut the actual tile out and throw it up on a wall, and his work is pretty extraordinary. And now they've rewritten the book. The actual tile book didn't have a section for mosaic, and they're working on creating it like a new chapter in the world of tile. So it's not just you're right in that it's not just the drywall trade. I mean, you wouldn't even think that you could do something creative in the drywall trade, but you absolutely can, or tile, or any of the trades for that matter. You got electrician, seems boring, but there's all kinds of really cool stuff they're doing with LEDs creatively in homes, or sound.
I would say even I've been on some jobs where the conduit coming down and like bent, and it looks just like perfect.
Yeah.
And like beautiful in just how it's, because they needs to be nice, everything needs to go through there. And I will tell you that is awe-inspiring, because I'm like, I don't know how you did that. It doesn't look, it looks like it came out of a machine in general. I don't know, but it looks beautiful. So I think there's elements, if you look at it in a different way, like you're explaining, that the art, the creativity that can come from it. I would think even for Jenna and I, there's an aspect of, now we've got the podcast, we have found passion in portions of our work that now this is taking us somewhere else. So it wasn't for me, and I think it's different for Jenna. Like I didn't have this like, oh yay, I have passion for construction. I got into it because of a family situation, and like, hey, my mom's in it, I'm gonna do it. Sounds like a good idea. And now I have found passion once I'm in there for a portion of it. And I think that's the element where it's just go out there and try it. You don't even know. If you don't know what you want to do, why not try this instead of getting into debt, like you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I'd say too, like, I feel like it's also something that people take pride in. I mean, to Kelly's point, I was actually thinking the same thing, Kelly. Like, electricians, at least a lot of electricians that I've met, take their job is so, they take it so seriously, and everything just looks beautiful. Like, all of their, like how they're laying their conduit out, and it's all like, you can tell they're perfectionists. And it's just so funny to me because it's like they're taking so much pride in their work. And that same thing with my carpenters. I mean, my carpenters are, I call them millwork magicians, because the things that they can do, like with a product that came wrong or whatever, they can fix it. They can make it look a certain way. They, not only that, but they know how to properly install it so that it's safe, so that it's not going to fall on people. You know, like there's all these things that go into the trades. That's not just simple as installing or, you know, putting things into a building. I mean, people take so much pride in what they do to make a building look nice. I mean, even if it is concrete or the plumbing or whatever, like that's what people see. And to your point, I feel like the drywallers don't get enough credit because it is the one thing that you just walk by and you're like, oh, this, you know, this building looks really nice. But if the drywall did not look nice, they would know. They would be like, oh, this looks like crap. Like,
they're the first to bitch about it. Oh yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. They go in with the blue tape. Painter's like, I can't even paint this.
I can't do anything about it.
Like, you know, forget about it. You know, and the painter's got, like, the drywall guy has to have like a relationship with the painter and be like, you know, they got to be buddies so that the painter doesn't like, you know, bitch about the drywall work. And it's like, well, it started with the fucking framers, or the framers are bitching at the foundation guys, you know. And it's
a trickle
ongoing. Just keep going. It just keeps going.
I'm worried
but that the hanging's key, man, to good drywall. Like, people don't know that. Like, those hangers, like, you get like a good hang crew in there, they're gonna do like the shear strength and just the amount, like you were saying, the amount of butts and bands. You know, a good drywall hanger will know how to do a house to take care of the finishers. The best drywall hangers are generally finishing their own work.
Yeah.
You're looking at you're preparing it for the next person instead of just throwing it up. It's like, who is my next person? How can I make sure they work efficiently? How can they
totally.
make it look beautiful? How can they make my work look beautiful? Right? It's like that next portion of it.
Yeah, we're the absolute last. Like, what we do is, you know, it's the absolute last thing that goes in on the walls. And like I said, I mean, you can just tell if it's crap or not. So we have a very, like, I do personally have a very high respect for what drywall or what finishers do.
Yeah.
But
I was gonna ask, I mean, going back, you've got Fresco Harmony, and then you've got the Drywall podcast. What drew you to creating that? Like, what's your passion behind that and bringing the voices that you have on the podcast to millions of people to listen?
It's shameless. It was shameless advertising. I had to sell Fresco Harmony. And, like, I would go talk to the drywall guys, and, like, they just want to talk about drywall. They don't care about some new fancy colored mud. And then I would go talk to the plaster guys, and they're like, oh, you're just using mud? No. That's not how you do it. And so the plaster guys would look down their nose at what I'm doing. I'm getting more respect now because it's like, duh, you idiots. Like, you're, you know, and they'll sell like, oh, I mean, for instance, and I mean, I would always ask, like, well, why aren't they doing plaster in every house? Well, it's because it's too expensive and it's too time consuming. Like, they haven't cracked the code to figure out how to make it fast and efficient to be attractive to the builder. So it has to be to affect change. It has to be attractive. So there's a story that I use as an analogy around track housing and granite countertops. So before granite, they were doing like vinyl counters, like the crappy counters all over the place. And then there was one builder that started to do granite countertops. And then, you know, once one person gets the granite countertops, everybody has to get them. And that cost gets absorbed into the building of the house because it's important. Nobody wants a vinyl countertop. Everybody wants granite. It's got to be granite. And so I see the same thing with the walls. Like, I've finished enough houses in Fresco Harmony where I'm like, it's not even a selling point to me anymore. It's like, why would you texture and paint when this option is available? You can get maybe 10, 15% over your paint and texture costs. You can get Fresco Harmony. The drywall guy doubles or triples their profit margin, and the builder gets a plaster home. Like, that's a win. That's a win across the board on 89% of the visual space in your home. Mm-hmm. So that pitch, though, is a challenging one. And I listened to podcasts, and I listened to Guy Raz. So there's a podcast called How I Built This. I think that they use NPR or something, but he's a fantastic interviewer. And he interviews people like Patagonia, Starbucks, Spanx, Ring. I've listened to probably 50 of them, and they're all fascinating. Like, Cliff Bar, like all these people that have become ultra, like, stratosphere successful, but like, and he's like asking very plain questions, like, how did you do that? And I was having a challenging time marketing Fresco Harmony because I'm talking to all these drywall people. Well, they don't give a shit. Like, they don't care about a new product. They're used to just doing drywall. And they don't want to hear about anything new, and it's a challenging conversation. But I would have these conversations with some of these drywallers on the side. They would call me and they'd ask, like, questions about Fresco Harmony, and we would get in these long-winded conversations about texture and walls and going over painted texture and surfaces. And I was like, this should be a podcast. Like, this is really interesting. So I was like, I mean, even my friends and business partners at the time, I was like, I'm going to start the Drywall podcast. And they were like, that is the most ridiculous idea you've ever had. And it does seem like a ridiculous idea, but there was no podcast in the drywall space, like none. No. And there still is, like, relatively nothing in this space. Yeah. Like, go to the tile forums. There's like, probably 100 podcasts about tile or framing or masonry, but like drywall, like, forget about it, like nothing. And so I wanted to make it good. I wanted it to be sponsored by Fresco Harmony. Obviously, I could shamelessly talk about Fresco Harmony
all day long.
What emerged, though, was this human interest piece on the individuals, the men and women that make up the drywall industry, and these unique stories to each individual person. And an even further Easter egg was that it's created community. So not only has it catapulted the success of Fresco Harmony, like, really, like, exponentially, gotten me to where I'm interviewing higher and higher level profile people in the trade, company owners and things like this. But like, it's, people are, oh, what's Fresco Harmony? It's like just a natural, we start talking about it. And so it's a natural plug and promotion for the product, but it's created community. And that has really been something that's fascinating that I could not have foreseen happening, is that it's actually creating community in the drywall trades, and not just on a national level. Like we've interviewed people from New Zealand and Australia and England and Brazil, tons of people from Canada. There's a huge, heavy online influencer group from Canada. Like, so the Canadians are really prevalent in the drywall space, influentially. So it's been pretty tremendous, and I could probably do so much more marketing the drywall podcast too than I do. I just don't have enough. There's not enough time in the day to, do all of the things. But I love doing it. It's a lot of work, as you guys know. Podcast is no joke. And I was pumping out one a week there for a while.
That's hard.
Yeah.
And it's just you. I mean, we got Jenna and I, and it's still hard just for us. So that's good on you for trying that for a while.
Yeah, I like your platform. I do like it. I like that it keeps a time ticker up there. Like Zoom's very bare bones, but it's fine. Like I don't get caught up in the weeds of like the production quality. It's more content. To me, it's like content's king. I want a very entertaining. I want a podcast. I want a drywall. Forget about the name, the Drywall Podcast, for a second. I want a podcast that is hyper entertaining for everyone. That somebody could come in that doesn't even listen to the Drywall Podcast or know anything about drywall and enjoy the podcast because we're talking to all these characters in the industry.
Yeah,
I would agree. We've had some of that I've had friends and family listen to some of our episodes, and same thing. They're like, I don't work in the industry. I know nothing about it, but that story from this person or just what you guys talked about, like I can easily turn that into what I deal with, or that was just impactful hearing that person's story. So that's very similar. It's something that's just fun to look at. We found this because we get video, because we wanted to move up to the video space and saving some time for Jenna and I on the marketing and the editing front. So that's where this came into play.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, that's what I've worked.
It's cool.
Well, I have one last question for you, though. If you could challenge anything that is the norm in the industry, other than changing the mud to have some color in it than what Fresco Harmony does, what would that be? If you could, any norm that we have, what would you challenge to say, hey, we could do better at?
I've learned a lot about the women in construction, and I think that there's probably a misconception that's starting to shift a little more, where it's becoming more prevalent. It's becoming a safer space for women to come into, and I think that is bringing a very I think it's bringing a more full energy to construction, like having that feminine energy. I think is really important to not. It's like the yin and the yang of life, that energy coming into, ultimately masculine space. I think is good. It's good energy. Like I wish I could articulate it a little better, but it's happening. I'm seeing it happen in just the drywall space, but it's very cool. And then also through social media, the women are connecting, and that's creating more acceptance. Yeah, and not only that, they're getting and I follow lots of women that aren't in the drywall space too. That are just crushing it. So the social media is really, I think, catapulted women in construction like nothing else, because nobody wants to follow a guy. Guys are boring. Everybody wants to follow the women. But it's energy. That's the energy. Yeah. And I think it's really powerful. Like women's soccer in the United States, they were pioneers for other countries to have soccer teams. Like they were kicking everybody's ass for so long, and then other countries were like, "Oh, we got to have a women's team because we can't have the United States just kicking our ass every time the Women's World Cup rolls around." So kind of like that. It's kind of like that,
I love that.
All right, let's kick some ass, Jenna.
You guys already are.
We're good. Let's go. Yeah, Denver's getting a women's soccer team, and that got announced like a couple of weeks ago. So
there you go.
The guys' soccer team goes up and down. So interesting to see what happens as we are now a new city for the women's soccer program.
Are they the Rapids?
Yeah, Colorado Rapids. Oh, well, the women's team will not be. They're going to be completely separate owners. So the men's is the Rapids, but completely separate owner. And
I know the Timbers. So the Timbers have the Thorns. So like, you've got the Timbers, the women are the Thorns.
The Thorns.
Yeah. Awesome.
Fantastic.
kind of funny.
Yeah,
it.
but I know Portland was very they were one of the front runners in women's soccer, professional soccer in the United States. Yeah, there's just some parallels there, and if I was to pick out something, it would be that aspect of construction. I think that these women that are showcasing what they do, and that coupled with the platform of social media are giving permission to women to just come in, and also permission to the guys to be more accepting of women in the trade too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Nick. This has been great. I've been so happy to have you
guys
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely share, if you want to send us some information on Fresco Harmony, and then also some more information on your podcast, we can put that in the show notes so that our audience can go find more about you and follow your podcast. I mean, that's kind of what we're here for, is to kind of help spread all the awareness and all the cool things that everyone's doing in the industry.